Okay, let's officially start. And then this is a history of Greco-Roman philosophy. And today is the second section. Let me share my screen. I hope everybody can see my screen. If you have any question or you want to, I expect that I will have a short presentation, and I expect I will have a break, and you can share your idea and what do you learn from either this section or from previous reading. So let's start. So last week we talked about death of Socrates, but actually we haven't finished yet. And this week we'll continue talking about Socrates. And next week we will move forward to Platonic philosophy and move forward to Plato's political philosophy. And then we move to Aristotle and all the way. Okay, so that's the schedule, and we will change if necessary, and just temporary schedule. So that's the all the philosophers I try to cover from the Thales all the way to Marcus Aurelius. Okay, so from this cover about 800 years, and there's different kind of philosophy, different kind of philosopher. Some have writing, some don't. So it's a little bit difficult to follow the same format all the time. So I would change accordingly, depend on what kind of philosophers or what kind of writing they have. So the area we are going to cover basic is around in the ancient Greek world, and basics that's Athens, Sparta, and then on the Asia Minor, which is so-called Ionian school, and on the Italian side of the Idiac school, or one called Sicilian or Italian, I don't know. So that's the area we will cover. And when we move to the first or second century, all the culture, the Western culture was in Rome area. So that's why the Roman philosophy will start. So that's the project we try to do. And then this one is a history of Greco-Roman philosophy, but all the source I try to base is on the book. So that's the book I have the intention to cover. And then today the last week we talked about Euthyphro and Apology, which deal with Socrates' death. And today we will cover about 3 books, Crito, Phaedo, and the Symposium. Crito and Phaedo's basis deal with the death of Socrates, and the Symposium is another Platonic dialogue, which will talk about describes Socrates' life, I think. So that's the thing we want to start. And then I kind of generally organize all the philosophies in this group. Basics, the Athenians or 3 Athenians. Okay, the Athenian philosophy. Basically, we'll have Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, and we will cover in a few weeks. And then, of course, on the Asia Minor, we have Ionian school, and we have mysticism, which is on the Italian side. And at the same time, we also have to deal with Epicurean and the Stoicism. So that's what we will cover, and week by week, and that's what we try to do. So before we start, is any question or anything anyone want to have a comment, suggestion? And then I will open for, anyone have any suggestion or any question about what's going on? Okay, so if no, then let's move forward. So today the book I try to cover is 4 books. Okay, so it's a little bit rush, but I hope I can cover this 4 books. Okay. So first one is Plato's dialogue, Crito. It deals with when Socrates is waiting for trial, waiting for his death execution. And the Phaedo is the Socrates' last day. And after this, we will try to introduce another Platonic dialogue, Symposium. That's a drinking party. And so we will have an idea how about Socrates' life when he was alive. And then we will introduce another comedy written about so-called the crowd. So that's the book we will cover today. And then I think we had built this one last week. Basics, that's the background during the time. And Socrates was born on 470 BC and died on 399 BC. Okay, so today's, if you have to set in the historical background, the time is about 399 BC. That's the time. So we already did this one last week, and apology is when Socrates knows his verdict. So he had been charged for impiety and corrupt of the Athenian youths. So he has been sentenced to death. So that's we finished last week. He's waiting in the jail room, waiting for his execution. So that's we talked about last week. So before we move forward, and anyone have a question or any comment or any idea want to start before I move to today's subject? Okay, so look guys, everybody finds the situation. Okay, today we talk about one of Plato's short dialogue. The name is Crito. Crito is a person's name. He is Socrates' rich friend. So remember, the situation is this. Socrates is being charged for impiety and corrupt of the youths, and has been sentenced 2 votes. First vote, he got his guilty, and second vote, the punishment should be the death penalty. He has to drink the poisonous wine, and that's the death. So, in general, when in Greek time, if the person being penalty for the death penalty, you sent to death immediately. But there's the exception, because during the so-called holy season, there's no execution or happened. So the holy season is during this time, because let's look at the map. I think according to the Greek history, Theseus, the founder of the Athens, he traveled to Crete and come back and have a storm. And then he stopped in Delos, in this island, and he made a vow. So he said every year he was offer the sacrifice to the Apollos. So every year, Athens, Greek, was sent the boat, the ship to Delos, and to offer the sacrifice, and then come back. So when the boat leaves Athens, before the boat arrives, that's a holy season. So there's no execution will happen. So that's what happened when Socrates being sentenced to death, because that's during the holy season. So he is waiting in the jail. So he's waiting in the jail. Okay, that's why he has been staying there, and then it's they have the storm, so the ship had to wait in Delos and cannot go back. So Socrates had been waiting for about a month. So that's what happened in the Crito. So the Crito dialogue happened in this way. The scene is in the jail. So Socrates is getting up. So when Socrates see Crito coming, Socrates said, has the ship come from Delos, on the arrival of which I am to die? So Crito said, no, the ship has not actually arrived, but the ship will probably be here tonight. So that means today is Socrates' last day, and also means, the second day is his, the execution day. So Crito is rich, Socrates' rich friend, and then he offered, he told Socrates, tonight.
Wait, Shirley, are you in space? I'm lost. Sorry,
Wait, how did you get out there? Wait, they're letting regular civilians go to space? Is that like that blue rocket Elon Musk thing?
I'm confused, Jason. Is she in space?
I think that's a green screen. I think that's
okay.
Green screens aren't real. That's space.
Wait, Wayne, are you Wayne, are you tweaking?
Hold on. I have to deal with this one.
Wayne, Wayne, I like your couch cushion. I really like those cushions, man.
Wait, are you overdosing right now?
Oh my god, is he? He's going crazy. Look at him.
Your jaw's kind of rocking, Wayne. I think you're tweaking, buddy. And Shirley, you kind of look like the Stonehead statue on Stonehenge.
Okay, I have to deal this one. Sorry. Yeah. Zach? Hold on. Okay, sorry. Okay. Shoot. We have a Zoom bombing, so hold on. Let me take care of this one. So everything okay right now? Can anybody tell me it's okay now? Can you knock your head?
It's good.
Okay, so sorry about this. And is anybody willing to be my co-host to manage this one, this situation? Who has a better computer experience? And can you raise your hand? And anybody want to help me manage the situation?
Jason, I can do it if you want. I've done it for.
Patty, thank you. Okay, so let me put you as a co-host.
Right, because a couple of them are still here, I think.
Yeah, I know. And I don't expect that they have meetup because I don't see a lot of okay. So Patty, that's I'll let you control this one.
Thank you. I'll do my best.
Yeah, thank you so much. I don't expect it because I don't see a lot of sign up, so I think I can handle by myself. So you guys, we still have one bunch.
The chat is disabled.
Okay, so let me do it. Let me enable chat. Okay, and then you still can unmute yourself. Okay. So
and Jaquave Decole needs to be removed as well.
Okay, so please remove him. Jaquavi, right?
Yes.
J-A-Q-A.
Like he's on there 2 times.
Okay, let me remove. You can remove the person, right? Okay. Okay, so we are fine now. Okay, so let's restart. So basically, we are deal with the Critos. So Crito offer an escape for Socrates. So sounds like it's an easy escape during that time, and then you just have to spend some money and bribe the jailer, and it's easy to leave the jail and leave the country, leave the city. So it sounds like it's not a big deal. And Crito is rich, so he offered Socrates, that's the last chance to live. And then he said, if Socrates stay in jail and die, and it's not good, people will think, Crito is save his money, not doing the good thing for the friend, So I just list some of Socrates' reason not to live. Socrates talk about first is social contract. Socrates said he has been here for 70 years. And then if he disagreed about the law of Athenian law, he should have left the country long time back. He would not stay here for 70 years. So that's the first concept of social contract. And then number two, he talked about he will get nothing from escape. If he go to a well-ordered state, people will look down on him. If he go to the disordered state, and then it's not good to live in a disordered state. So he talked about if he stay here and die, his children, he has three, one adult, two young children. His children will die. His children will be treated much better if he died. And then he talked about the idea of next life. He talked about death, it's going to the next life. And he talked about the law are not wrong, but the people are wrong. So he talked about if I escape, people will think my formal teaching is insincere. And the state is more, another concept he bring up is the state, which he means the city, the collective, a group of people are more valuable than individuals. So that's his general idea about the reason he refused to leave. So I just briefly talk about this book, then I will talk about another book, another dialogue, which is Phaedo. Let's talk about Socrates' last day. So if I have any question or any comment, that's the time. No? Okay, so let's deal with Phaedo. Phaedo is another dialogue, and which deal with Socrates' last day. So basics, the setting is the last day in the morning. Phaedo. Okay, one thing like to make it clear is when Plato writes dialogue, it's not necessary or first-handed. A lot of time he set the distance. For example, like in Apology, Plato have because Plato was in the courtroom, so he has a first-hand report about Apology. But about Phaedo, Plato was not there. So basically the setting is this. Phaedo told Eryximachus, okay, about Socrates' last day. Okay. So the place happened is in Pheadrus. Pheadrus is this place. If we look at the map, okay, Athens is here. Pheadrus is here on the Sparta side. So this Plato doesn't mention how many days or how long after Socrates' death. So basics is talking about Phaedo's run into Eryximachus, okay, in Pheadrus. And then Eryximachus asked Phaedo about Socrates' last day. Okay. So basically, that's the conversation start. Phaedo said, answer to Eryximachus, to be reminded of Socrates is always the greatest delight to me, whether I speak myself or hear another people talk of him. So the dialogue starts from Phaedo's account when Phaedo tell Epictetus about Socrates' last day. So the people over there is a lot of people in the jail room to see Socrates for the last day. So it's Crito and the Crito's son Hermogenes, Apollodorus, or we will see him in Symposium in the many Plato's dialogues and some strangers. And the important thing is Plato was sick during that day, so Plato was not there. And the story starts with his wife, Socrates' wife, Xanthipes, was crying, sitting by him, holding his child. And Socrates asked Crito to have somebody bring her away, so Socrates can have a last conversation with his friends. So that's the situation. Socrates don't want to talk to his wife. He wants to talk to his friend on the last day. So the conversation starts with Socrates was released from the shackles, and he bent and rubbed his leg. And then he started to talk about he feel pleasure without the shackles. So that's an important hint. He's talking about he being in shackles for a long time. And after release from the shackles, he feel pleasure. So this one is the hint about Plato or Socrates' idea of freedom of soul. So that's the thing I'd like to pay attention on that. So the teaching, okay, let's talk about the philosophy of the on this dialogue. So basics, this one is talking about the philosophy of soul. And if the dialogue is a little bit long, so I will only bring some important point and which you may see even today. So first, Socrates talking about philosophy is always pursuing death. For the body hinders the soul's search for knowledge, and the death will bring about the separation of body and the soul. So body and the soul, this dualism concept will start from here. So philosophy is not merely an academic discipline or profession. It is a way of life and the soul's salvation. If forms, if forms are known by mind alone, wisdom concerning true being can mature only after death, when the mind is wholly free. Okay, so basically this one is talking about the idea. Our physical body is kind of like a shackle, okay, and control our body, our soul. So when you die, your soul will be free. And soul was previously shackled to the body, converted by the senses, enslaved by its desire. Philosophy offers releases from its deception. So that's the idea of body and the soul. And then another important idea is talking about immortality of soul. So the soul will never die. So his proof is soul is just like a harmony. So, and the body is just like an instrument. So instrument and harmony, instrument will produce harmony. So after instrument destroyed, the harmony is still there. So Socrates or Plato's idea is that after the death of body, the soul was still there. And then he also bring up another important Platonic idea about the doctrine of form. Basically talk about form is absolute, pure, and self-identical. So this concept will keep showing up in almost all Plato's dialogue. So all things which are generated from their opposite. So living must return from the death, and therefore the death must exist somewhere prior to return. So this one is talking about the other world. Okay. So when you die, your soul will go to the other world. So Socrates is talking about now, if it is true that the living come from death, then our soul must exist in the other world. For if not, how could they have been born again? So the concept of reborn is also bring up here. So knowledge as a collection concept of, so he bring up the example like equality, okay, is a concept pre-exists, a recollection concept. So his comparison would be body and the soul would be like a sensation and the mind. So the idea is he value our mind much more than sensation, our sensor feeling. And this idea is not new, actually, in pre-Socratic philosophy. And Anaxagoras already mentioned about, he talked about the nous, the mind, is the highest good. But the criticize is Anaxagoras fell back on the physical cause. So that's the main teaching on the on this dialogue. So another concept I think is interesting is in Phaedrus. They bring up the incarnation, or if you are familiar with Buddhism teaching or Hinduism teaching, is the samsara. That's when people die, you will reborn again. And then this one, Socrates is talking about soul's future will depend on the degree of purity of your current life. So you will become, person will become acids, okay? If you are gluttony, wantonness, or drunkenness, you will become acids. And if you are injustice, tyranny, violent people, you will become wolf, hawks, or kites. And then if you behave civil and the social, which he means the temperance and the justice by habit, okay, but not by philosophy, okay, then you will become a social animal like bees, wasp, ants, or human. Okay. So you are a good citizen, but not because of your philosophy. You will become a human again, or any other civil animal, social animal. And only the person who study philosophy, love of knowledge, entire pure when he departs, okay, he talk about himself, okay, will enter the company of the God. So that's the idea he is talking about. And then during the conversation when he sent away his wife and before his death, Socrates is talking about this kind of philosophy. So before we move on, and then if you have a question or you have something you want to share, please raise your hand or you can jump in. Okay, so let's talk about Socrates' last moment. So the last moment, Socrates, okay, he talked about, I may and must take the gods to prosper my journey from this to the other world. Okay. And he asked for provide a libation. He provided a libation, okay, but the jailer told him, we only prepare just enough wine for you, the poison wine. Okay, so Socrates raised the cup to his lip and drink readily and cheerfully, and he drank off the poison. So during the time, Pheado, his friend, okay, Pheado wept, and not for him, but for the thought of my own, that's Pheado's writing, but thought of my own calamity in having to part from such a friend, which is Socrates. So another person, Apollodorus, okay, he has been weeping all the time, broke out in the loud and passionate cry. Okay, so Socrates tell him, I send away women mainly in order that they might misbehave in this way. So men shall die in peace. That's Socrates saying. So Socrates started to walk. So after he drank, he walked until his legs, okay, began to fail and lay down on his back. So let's remember at the beginning, Socrates rubbed his leg. So he's walking, and then the jailer look at his feet and the legs and press his foot, his leg, and going upward and upward, and show everyone that he was cold and stiff. And then the jailer said, when the poison reached Socrates' heart, and that will be the end of his life. So Socrates had his last word. He asked Crito, I owe a cock to Asclepius. Okay? Asclepius is the god of medicine. So once upon Socrates got sick, and he prayed, make a vow to Asclepius. Okay, say if I get better, I will offer a cock. Okay, so he forget. So he asked Crito. He said, I owe a cock to Asclepius. So will you remember to pay the debt? So Crito said, the debt should be paid. Is there anything else? So he has no answer. Then his eye were set, and Crito closed his eye and the mouth. Okay, so that's the last moment of Socrates. And the Pheado write, of all men of his time, he was the wisest and the justest and the best. So that's the last moment of Socrates' life. So so I will put a short stop here, and then is anyone have any thing, and how do you think? It's welcome to share, and then you can raise your hand if you want to share your idea. Okay, and how do you think about the Socrates story, and how do you think, and what's your opinion about this kind of story? Yeah.
Jason, was Socrates the first philosopher to develop the idea of the soul and the soul's existence in another world?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think so. But I think Socrates, well, first, it's hard to separate Socrates or Plato, because Socrates didn't leave any words on that, any writing. So what we see Socrates is from Plato or Xenophon. Okay, only these two persons, and most people read Plato. So I will consider the early Plato, like Phaedrus, Symposium, and Crito, Apology, it's Socrates' philosophy. And then later writing is Plato's philosophy. So that's my opinion. And the soul is not invented by Socrates, because before Socrates, like Anaxagoras already talk about nous, which is mind, is the soul. So I don't think Socrates invented this idea, but I think when in the Western world, we kind of have a clear cut of soul and the body, okay, dualism. I think they start from Plato, okay, because most of people may think it's Christian, but Christianity. But I think because Greek idea and Platonic idea, and that's why that's easy for Christianity teaching to survive. They are lying like same idea. So that's my opinion. So
it makes sense, though. I think, yeah, that's why I asked, because I'm more concerned with or thinking about that idea of the soul existing elsewhere, both before birth and after death.
Yeah. And a lot of people talking about the probably Hinduism idea, because because you will see a lot of reincarnation, not only in this dialect, also in other dialect. They talk about reincarnation, and it's very Indian-like, because you're doing something good, and then next life will do something good, but in a different flavor. So some people will say, oh, that's Greek teach Indian, and some people will say, oh, that's Indian. They learn from India, but I don't know.
Well, there's only really so many options. The part that fascinates me is that they do come together and just I don't know how to say what I'm trying to say. There really aren't a lot of options. It's a constant mystery. So it makes sense to me that they would come together, but I don't know that there's any evidence that they informed each other or fed from each other.
No, I don't know the evidence. And I think in other meetup, we have a group discussion and basically leading to nowhere because.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Maria, please.
It strikes me that Socrates was almost looking forward to his death because he talks about the unshackling and feeling free and the theme of reincarnation. So clearly he expects that his soul now being free, he will reincarnate into something higher. And I do find the similarities to the Eastern religions quite striking.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I didn't bring up all the argument because when Socrates talk about he is looking for the death and can free his soul, and Crito said that they're not counter argument, then why don't you commit suicide, right? And Socrates has a counter argument that says you have to die justly, okay? Commit suicide is not the right thing to do. So that's this kind of teaching. This one, and he looking for the other world, which also very Christian-like thinking on this. Yeah, Dan, please.
Thank you for that nice presentation. Now I'm kind of a scholar of ancient philosophy too, but my impression here is that the Phaedo doctrines are Platonic rather than Socratic.
Yeah.
That Socrates in the Apology says he's kind of agnostic about whether there's an afterlife or not. He says it would be great if there were, you know, I could go have dialogues with people and examine what their views are and so forth, but he's not committed to that. And it's not part of his argument for why he should act the way he does, that he will be rewarded in an afterlife or anything like that. And so, you know, it does seem like that this, you know, the whole argument of the Phaedo is very Platonic, put in the mouth of Socrates, of course, and on the occasion of Socrates' death, but not expressing Socratic views. I do think that Socrates has a view of soul, but he does not include a commitment to immortality of soul. And so for him, soul is the center of the moral life, but again, he's agnostic about whether it's immortal or not.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Yeah, I totally agree with you. You know, and if we look at the dialogue, you know, in Apology, Plato put his as a first account, right? Plato was there, so he write down what's going on. And in this one, it's happened after Socrates' death. I don't know how long. Okay, certain distance, and then the Phaedo heard. But Phaedo told another person. Okay, what's it? Echecrates, right? So that's a second account. So I think the Plato create a distance on that, so he can put his words in Socrates' mouth. Okay, so I think that's the reason. And I totally agree with you. And this idea is very Platonic. Yeah. And the next week we will talk about Plato's, and then we will see Plato actually probably traveled to Egypt, stay for a while. So, and he has close on the other side, Italian side, which has more mystic thinking. So his soul could be different than Socrates' soul. And that's another thing we will do next week. Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
So anything want to share again? And so we will forget about the death of Socrates, and we will talk about happy things, and we are going to talk about the drinking party. And from now on, if you have no more question, then. Okay, so let's move on for the second part, and then we will talk about the, not talk about the death, we talk about the life, okay. Symposium, okay. Symposium, personally, I like this dialogue a lot. It's a long dialogue. And during the pandemic, we had a meetup, and then we met for 2 sections, and each time is 4 hours. And then we have no discussion, just read from the first word to the last word, take turn. And then, be honest, I learn nothing from that because it's too much. And then after study, and I start to get it, and I like to share what I learned on Symposium. And it's a very different kind of philosophy. And then to the end, you probably can share, do you think that's a philosophy, or, that's a drama? So, so let's talk about the background. Okay. So again, just like Dan mentioned, is this one Socrates or really Plato's philosophy? We don't know. But we can see the setting on this one. Basics is talking about Apollodorus. Remember the person, okay, his friend is telling the story to Glaucon. Okay. Glaucon is Plato's younger brother. So first, Apollodorus telling the story to Glaucon. Okay. And then Glaucon, okay, heard the story from someone, okay, who heard it from Phoenix, and said, okay, Apollodorus might know better. Okay. So Apollodorus, okay, the answer is it's impossible. I heard, okay, Apollodorus is not there in the party. Okay, Symposium is the drinking party. Apollodorus is not there in the party, but he heard from Aristophanes, okay, and he described Aristophanes is a little fellow who never wear shoes. So seems like it's not an important person. So Apollodorus heard this one many years ago. So it sounds like the story was written after Socrates' death. Okay. And during this time, Socrates was died at 70 years old. At this time, Socrates was 54 years old. So basically it's 15 years after Socrates, after the party. At least 15 years. And Apollodorus also said, at that time, okay, during the party, when he heard the story from Aristophanes, he was running the business of the world. Seems like he was a philosopher and doing a lot of things. But right now I'm old, I retired, I'm not thinking about this thing. So Plato created distance on that. So basics is, Apollodorus tell the story to his brother, but Apollodorus is not the first account. He heard, okay, long time ago from a not important person called Aristophanes, okay, about this. And you will know, Aristophanes, okay, not only not important, when he was in the party, he seems not an important person in the party, and then to the end of the party, he only half awake. So he totally drunk. So we don't know how true of this one. So I think that's how Plato create the distance of this one. Okay. So during this one, so that's the setting, and then let's move, to the party. Okay. The party is Symposium called the drinking party. Basically, they celebrate and they drink, get wild. So the philosophy teaching on this one is love. Okay. So that's probably the only philosophy in the Western history until modern. Hardly people talk about love. So this one is talking about love. But I just have to say, Greek love is very different than what we think the love today. So that's a drinking party hosted by Agathon in Agathon's house. Okay. So Agathon was a young tragedy writer, and he's rising star during that time. And then he get an award. Okay, so his book get award, and then he has a party. So he invited people, a lot of people come in, and then a lot of people, they take turn to praise the love. okay, to praise the love. So the person, the prayer, the person who speak is Agathon, okay, who is the tragedy writer. Phaedrus is Socrates' student, and they have another dialogue called Phaedrus, okay, which talk about sophist. And another person is Pausanias, and I don't know who he is, but basically he's about 50 years old person. And Eryximachus is a physician, okay, medical doctor. And Aristophanes is a famous comedy writer, and he writes the book, the play called The Cloud, a comedy, to make fun of Socrates. And if we have time, we will introduce this book. Okay. And then another person is Alcibiades. He's a young, handsome, noble general, and he admired of Socrates. Okay, so he loved Socrates. And remember, here in Greek time, and when they talk about love, they include men and the man and the man and the woman, and it's common for them. For an old man love young men. Okay, so that's a common. So just don't think about love as male, female, and basically it's any combination is allowed. So then other drinkers. So that's the background on the symposium. Okay, so I'm going through for the different person who speak, and then the book is very long. And each person speak, of course, is never short. It's always very long. And then to the end, and you can expect Socrates will speak, and he speaks even longer. So I have to summarize, and it's a difficult job. And then if you see others summarize, and depend on who the summarizer, the person, the writer is, people have a different view, and I just have to share my view. So first is Phaedrus. Phaedrus is Socrates' student. So he talked about love is the oldest of all gods, full of power, author of the greatest blessing. So here he talked about the story, the Greek mythology of Aphrodite, okay, the love, okay, you can call the god of beauty, god of love, okay, Aphrodite. According to Hesiod's theogony, right? Aphrodite was born from when the first generation Uranus, okay, what his genital was cut off by his son Cronus, the Titan, right? And he threw the genitals to the ocean. The form, okay, create Aphrodite. So that's in this point of view, Aphrodite, the love, is the oldest of all gods, even older than Zeus, because Zeus is the son of Cronus. So Aphrodite is the oldest, and no matter, just the oldest. So he talked about love is the motive of desire for honor and the fear of shame. So love between men are the noblest. So here they talk about if he used the example is Achilles and Patroclus. Okay, if you I show the picture in the movie Troy. Okay, Achilles and Patroclus, right? Because there's men and the men, they love each other, and when Patroclus died, Achilles got crazy, and so he talked about love is the most powerful, the oldest of all gods, and then if the country, the person with love would be the most powerful. Okay, that's Phaedrus' speech. So if move on, the second speaker is Pausanias. Okay, Pausanias talk about the mythology. Actually, they have the two stories of Aphrodite, right? One is just like the previous speaker Phaedrus talked about, was created from the form. Okay, it's the oldest of all gods. But Pausanias talk about, actually they have the two stories of Aphrodite, right? Hesiod, the story talk about Aphrodite was born from the white form produced by the severe genitals of Uranus. But in Homos, okay, talk about Aphrodite was the daughter of Zeus and Dione. Okay. So there's two different kinds of story. And so Pausanias talking about, that means love have two kinds of love. One is a heavenly love, just like the first story, because that's because there's no mother, no woman involved. And then bodily love is the second story, because Aphrodite has mother. So in this point of view, during that time, Greek woman has no education. So in their point of view, of course, they all male. Their point of view, if you love woman, it's just love the body because they have no intelligence. And if you love men, they have intelligence, not because their body, because their intelligence. So they talk about two different kinds of love, the love of seeking the virtue and the intelligence, or seeking the beautiful body. So Pausanias, second speaker, talk about this kind of concept. Then come with the third one, which his name is Eryximachus. Okay, he's a doctor, and in Plato's setting is his speech is long and boring. Okay, he has a purpose to do this, and what he speaks is all true. Okay, so you can see his speech is based on the medical research on love. Okay, so he talked about science of Eros, passion, and the lust. So another story is Eros, right? In sometimes in Latin called Amo or Cubic. Okay, that's his Latin name. He's the son of Aphrodite. Okay, so Eros. So he talked about scientific language, and the reason Plato set up this long and scientific language is the next one is Aristophanes, the comedy writer. It'd be funny and interesting. And the one after is Agathon. He is a rhetorical speaker because he's the writer of tragedy. Okay, and then come with Socrates, and of course that's a philosophical speech. So that's the setting on Plato's dialogue. So he also bring up Heraclitus and Empedocles. Okay, which Heraclitus is they have the positive and negative. So he start to bring up the love is not always good. They have diseased love, hateful love, right? Yeah, because love, you become jealous, right? So you cause impiety, pulling away us from proper love. So two kinds of love, and then you need a divination, encourage proper love, and produce between God and the man. And the proper species of love create harmony. So harmony, as a doctor, harmony is important. So even among opposite, different kind of people, different kind of group, and love is affect all nature and even can interact between human and the God. So according to Greek idea of pursuing, they have a strong ideal of moderation in everything. So Eryximachus suggests that it is all right to have a lower love, which is bodily love, as long as it's satisfied with the principle of moderation. So he's very, I think his speech is even correct today, right? The love is a double-bladed sword, and you can cause some problem, and you can bring you something, and you have to be moderate in everything and bring the balance, harmony. That's Eryximachus' speech on this one. And then I'm going to, so I decided to put the cartoon would be easier to explain. So he talked about the myth of androgen. Okay, so he talked about, okay, of course, this one is baseless. He just, because remember, Aristophanes is a comedy writer. So he talked about a fable. He talked about before, long time ago, that's the people have two head, four hand, four leg. Okay, so just like this one, so you can see. Okay, so they all this one, and they have the three kind of gender, right? They have the male-male combination, they have female-female combination, or male-female combination. So they all have the two head, four hands, and the four legs. And the Zeus start to feel it's not good because they got too powerful. Okay, this kind of people are too powerful, and because so they were not respect the gods. So this one Zeus decided to split them in half. So they all separate. Okay. So after they separate, they start to looking for their lost one. So if the most are male-female combination, so male was seeking for female, female was looking for male. Okay, and then that also explains the homosexual. Some male looking for male, some female looking for male, because they are looking for one. So sounds like it's a cartoonish story, but they have their meaning on that Platonic philosophy here. Basically, it's talking about love. Okay, we are seeking love. It's not just bodily love, or we're looking for company, right? We are looking for, that's our human nature. Okay, and the love is not only sexual, but also desire to fusion onto one. So we are looking for one. So if you think about, that's a very Platonic thinking on that. So he's talking about soulmate. You are looking so, and then more important than sexual and the congenital or the procreation purpose on that. So that's Aristophanes' idea talking about love. So then we will move on for the next one is Agathon. Okay, of course, when they speak, they all bring up the myths. So Agathon as a host and also the tragedy writer, okay, the writing start, he talked about another story, okay, Eros. Okay, he is the son of Ares, which is in Roman called Mars, right, which is courage, and Aphrodite's or Venus. Okay, so it's beauty. So the courage and the beauty will generate. So love is the youngest, tendest of all God. So if you remember the first one, Phaedrus talking about love is the oldest of all God, most powerful. And to this point, Agathon is talking about love is the youngest, tendest of all God. Okay, so, but even why is youngest? Because it can last for a long time. So it's a creator of all animals, inspirer of all art, peacemaker among gods, and the beauty of heaven and earth. That's his word. So love has the four cardinal virtues. Okay, the Greek, during that time, they talk about four cardinal virtues, which is justice, moderation, bravery, and wisdom. So love is never the cause of victim of injustice. Okay, and since violence never touch him, so the idea, the highest virtue is justice. So violence will cause injustice. So love is the only thing you can smooth the violence. So that's Agathon's talking. So at this moment, we can stop for a while if you have a question, any comment, before we move to Socrates' long speech on this one. Any opinion on that, or how do you think about so far? Okay. Fred, please.
One thing I like about the symposium is its convivial setting and topic, because our conception of Socrates is often that he is usually that he is ascetic, his cloud in the head in the clouds, as Aristophanes would have it, and really a creature of the mind rather than body. But the other side of Socrates is that he, in his youth, was a valiant and decorated and brave soldier. And you get hints from fragments of writers that he was actually kind of a fun guy in some ways. I know that, for example, that I recall that one writer was kind of poking fun at him And Socrates admitted that he had developed a paunch from too much food and wine, but he said that he would just dance it off. He would lose his weight by dancing it off. So you get a sense that there's more to it than just this purely abstract, one might say Platonic thinker, that he knew the world. And I think that comes across a little bit more in Symposium, with both the notion of a drinking party and the exchange of ideas and the topic, of course, of love. So that's one thing I like about Symposium.
Yeah, thank you, Fred. Yeah, I also like the Symposium a lot. And every time I review it, and I got a new different idea. So I think that's a great dialogue to read. And it's more Socratic than Platonic. Okay. So let's continue after Agathon's speech, and then Socrates is being quiet for a long time, and he start to talk about this. And then he said, as usual, he only know to speak the truth. Okay, he doesn't want to just praise the love, he want to tell the truth. Okay, so he bring up the good idea. Okay, he started talk about, when we talk about love, we talk about love of something, right? Lover and the beloved. It's never of love itself. You don't have love, right? The love is always toward something. A love B, okay, this kind of thing. It's not a thing. Then he bring up a lady, okay, Diotima. Okay, that's Socrates' mentor. He's talk about, at that time, Socrates was 54 years old, and he talked about when he was young, and they have the lady, her name is Diotima, and then he told Socrates about love. So we don't know who is the Diotima, and he's one of the very few female philosophy in not only in the Platonic dialogue, also in the whole Western philosophy. So even we don't know is a true person or not true, but basically Diotima has been brought up, okay, for this speech. So basically the rest of part is about Diotima. So you talk about love is not good, it's not fair. Love is a mean between wisdom and ignorance. So it's a mean, it's not a thing, okay? And love is not God, love is not happiness. Love is spirit between God and man. So that's the idea talking about love is not itself, okay? So continue, he talk about, again, they bring up the myth, right, about Porus and the Pinia, okay? So different kind of myths, different story of Eros, okay? So basically, Porus was the personification of expedience, basically talking about abundance, the God, or you want to call it the spirit of the abundance. And during the party or on the Aphrodite's birthday party, he got drunk and he fell asleep and he was seduced by another god, okay, Pinia. Pinia is the god, a female. She was the god of poverty, okay. So when Porus got drunk and the poverty seduced him, and then they conceived a baby, and which is Eros, the love, okay, from their union. So based on this myth, okay, this story, so love, which is Eros, was conceived on the Aphrodite's birthday. So love or Eros is forever in need, just like his mother, because she is poor, right? So she always in need of something. And also like his father, okay, he's always forever pursuing something like his father. So that's the idea of love. It's never a thing. It's always in need and always pursuing. So that's Diotima's teaching us about the love. So if we look at this one, so they start bringing the idea about the pregnancy, right? So you talk about love, okay? This kind of behavior, that's called behavior, or like have to make pregnancy, and to produce something. So that's the idea Socrates or Diotima bring up, love and pregnant and produce something. So he's talking about what use love to men. So men love the beautiful thing, in order to possess the good, which is happiness. So it's end at happiness. So the final goal is happiness. But love is a means to pursue the happiness and to produce the good, which is happiness. So all men like to procreate the beautiful in body and in soul. So this is how mortal, which is man, can create immortals. So he's talking about just like when a man want to have children, and you want your name, your family being long-lasting, become immortal. So only with love, the mortal can create immortals. So he gives some example for men are pregnant. Men can get pregnant in soul. So they write poems or paint pictures. They conceive wisdom and the virtue. The best of all wisdom are the organization of the states. They are statesmen, lawmaker, artists, and what they produce are more beautiful and more immortal than children in flesh. So he's not only talking about the physical love, the man love woman and produce children. He's talking about the man, the artist create a piece of art is also kind of spiritual, pregnant. And also, I think this one also leads to later on Plato's philosopher king, right? So if you become the ruler, the philosopher king, and you create a utopian state, okay? So that's the idea Socrates is talking about. So it ends Socrates' speech with famous diathemas, letters. He talked about what's going down. So the first level of love, you love for a particular body. That's a particular love, right? One love A, love B, this kind of thing. Then you can move up to the universal love. Okay, so basically you love all people, general or agape, this kind of concept. Then you can love for souls. That's in today we will say the platonic love. That's a soulmate. And then you can also move on the political side. So you become love for law, institution, love your country, and then, you know, so this kind is another level of love. Then you also can move up, okay? If you love for knowledge itself, that's a philosophy, okay? As a philosopher, you love for knowledge. And the very Platonic idea here bring up is love for the beauty itself. So it's not love for the beautiful thing, it's love for the beauty itself. So that's the Plato's idea, the idea of forms, the form of love itself. So, so that's a diathemas teaching on the love. So we will end Socrates' speech here, and then in most of dialogue, you know, that's probably a perfect ending because everybody speaks, and then to the end, right? Socrates speech, and everybody shut up, and that's the wonderful story. But this one is different. This style is different. So when Socrates finished, another person show up. Alcibiades, he show up, and he's totally drunk during that time. So before we have Alcibiades speak, okay, let's understand who is Alcibiades. Okay, so if you look at the history, okay, the age of the golden age, Pericles, okay, that's about 461 BC, and Alcibiades was born at 450 BC. He's 20 years younger than Socrates. So during that time, Socrates was 54, he was 34. So he is an Athenian politician and commander, okay, and Pericles was his guardian because his father died and he became, Pericles became his so-called godfather, okay. So he was drawn to Socrates' moral strength, keen mind, and Socrates in return was attracted to the youth, the physical beauty and the intellectual promise. Plato has another dialogue called first Alcibiades, and we don't know Plato is a true writer or not. Basically, it's talking about Socrates as a young lover, love Alcibiades, and then they haven't seen for a long time. And Alcibiades will come back to see Socrates and give advice about talking about the bodily love, this kind of thing. Okay, so during the party, okay, so when he was 19 years old, okay, the war of Peloponnesian War between Athens and Spartans began. So 1 year, the second year, when he was 20 and 430 BC, there's a plague in Athens, and a lot of about 10,000, probably 10,000 people died, and his godfather Pericles died. Okay, at the time. And then the war still continued. The war continued for 27 years. I mean, the Peloponnesian War lasts for 27 years. So Socrates and Alcibiades both served together in the Peloponnesian Wars. And Socrates, Socrates saved Alcibiades' life. So at the year of 420, when Alcibiades was 30 years old, he became a general. So that 4 years later, when he was 34, he's still a general, and that's the story, the event of the Symposium happened. So when Alcibiades walked in, okay, totally drunk. At that time, he was in his peak of his career. Okay, he's a general, he's a hero. But if you know, it's the second years. Okay, he did the military being recalled, and then he damaged the Hermes or something, being charged of sacrilege, and he fled to Sparta. And then, of course, later on, Athens lost the war, and then the 30 tyrants rule in Athens, and even Alcibiades being a traitor in Athens, he had to escape, and then he even cannot stay in Sparta, so he fled to Phrygia, which is the Persian side, and then died over there. I think he died earlier than Socrates. So the story of Alcibiades, okay, also important reason for Socrates being sentenced to death, because that's a promising young general, okay, and become a traitor, okay, escape to their enemy Sparta, and then they think because Socrates give him a bad influence on that. So that's the story. So that's back to the party when Alcibiades, totally drunk, entered the room party, and then. So what's Alcibiades' speech during the party? So Alcibiades think it's unfair to speak drunkenly, okay, after all the sober speech. Okay, so Eryximachus, okay, with the doctor, suggests, Alcibiades, how about you just give a speech in praise of Socrates, because Socrates is famous, okay. And but Socrates is something about he probably be mocked. Okay, because everybody know the Aristophanes, the comedy writing of the crowd, which is make fun of Socrates. Okay, so but Socrates, so that's the Alcibiades speech. He talked about Socrates' look. Okay, so look, I just showed two statues here. So if you look at the face, their face is probably similar to today's image of Socrates, because people probably make Socrates image from this. So talk about statue of Silenus and Marsyas, which are ugly. Okay, and Marsyas lure people. Is a so-called satire, and try to lure people, use his flute, and just like Socrates will use his word. Okay, so everybody listen to Socrates will be transported, completely possessed, okay, when Socrates speech. Okay, so Socrates, but even although Socrates is so ugly in appearance, but Socrates is a true beauty, except his appearance and the pretension of ignorance. So he's praised the wisdom of Socrates. So Alcibiades' speech in the party. So he talked about Socrates' words have a strong effect on Alcibiades, unlike any others, so much so that he make him feel trapped and as if his political career is a waste. So Socrates is the only one who make him feel his rising political career is not worth it. Okay, and Socrates is a famous lover of beautiful boys, but not in terms of the physical body, rich or fat. He desired the beauty and the good of things. At one point, Alcibiades thought Socrates desired him, and only thing he was to do is give in, so Socrates will love him. Okay, so he started to tell the story, and one day he invited Socrates for the dinner, and then hope Socrates will fall in love to him, but turned out that he failed. He got humiliated, and then but he still continued to admire Socrates to this point. And then he started to talk about Socrates had the self-control, and he even talked about he tried to seduce Socrates, but Socrates refused. Okay, and Socrates can drink any amount of wine without becoming drunk. And Socrates, during the war, Socrates saved his life, but give the prize to Alcibiades. And Socrates can not only the mentally strong, and he's also physically strong. He entered the hunger for days and wear a very light coat in the winter, march on ice barefoot. And Alcibiades' conclusion is Socrates deceived all, initially acting like a lover, but turning the young beloved into his lover or pursuer soon. So here's Alcibiades' speech on that. Okay, so of course you can expect for the drinking party, right? After the totally drunk young general speak, and everybody start to have fun and drink. So I just copy the last paragraph of the book. Basically, they talk about a large group. Okay, they break in and the drinking and the disorders. Okay, Aristodemus. Okay, remember the guy, the little fellow, always barefoot. Okay, he fall asleep. Okay, and wake up at dawn, so he doesn't know. Okay, what's going on after that. So the only persons are still awake are Socrates, Agathon, and Aristophanes, the tragic playwright and comedy writer, and Socrates. They are still drinking wine and engaging in dialogue. Okay, because the one is a comedy writer, one is a tragedy writer. Socrates is trying to convince them that anyone who can write a tragedy should be able to write a comedy. So, vice versa, they are the same. That's typical Socrates, like to argue with people. So eventually the other two, they mean the Agathon and Aristophanes all fall asleep, and only Socrates, still up. And he went out, take a bath, and spend the rest day as normal does before going home. So that's the end of party. So that's the end of party. And then I think let me quick talk about the crowd. Okay, so we can have a discussion on that, for a few minutes discussion on that. So a crowd is written by Aristophanes. Okay. And the famous comic writing, I believe it could be very popular during that time period. So the story is simple. Okay, talk about an old person. Okay, hold on, let me see. Okay, so to start from here, Socrates, okay, he's an old farmer. He married a rich aristocratic woman, and his son, okay, middle age, I think 40 years old, Phaedrus, okay, is indulged with a lot of money because he spent a lot of money on the horse. Okay, so his father, Socrates, okay, want to enroll him, his son, okay, in a school called Thinkery. This one is a school run by Socrates. Okay. So it said, it is a thinkery for intellectual soul. As a father tells son, okay, that's where the people live, and try to prove that the sky is like a baking pot all around us, and we all charcoal inside. And if you pay them well, they can teach you how to win a case, whether you are in the right or wrong. So here's talking about, he make fun of the Socrates running the school. They are studying the natural philosophy, because before, in the young age, Socrates was a natural philosopher. He studied nature. Okay, that's why one reason he has been charged for the impiety, because his natural philosophy kind of reject the God. He's not atheist, but he kind of used the natural philosophy to explain what's going on. But later on, after mid-age, Socrates turned to the moral philosophy. Basically, he is teaching about what to do. So he probably the first philosopher start to look in the person instead of looking outside the nature in the Western tradition. So that's the school, and of course it's not true. Okay, that's a story. So during the time, if you allow the money, the person will drag you to the court, and same as apologies story, right? You have to defend yourself if you lose, and have a punishment. So they worry about this. So the father, Aristophanes, tried to send his son to Socrates' thinkery school and to learn. So turn out that the result is Pheidippides was too stupid to learn, according to Socrates. So only thing he can learn is learn how to win argument from the wrong side. Okay, so like a sophist. Okay, so he started to beat up his father and start to argue. The son can beat the father, but the father cannot beat son. And then Socrates was very angry and gathered his slave to try to burn the thinkery school. So that's the end of story. The story is simple and a lot of humorous dialogue during that one. And they also have some philosophical meaning on that. So that's like kind of a brief introduction about Socrates' life. And I think I compiled this few dialogue, probably, okay, at least in my opinion, bring up the view of real Socrates instead of Platonic Socrates. And after next week, we will go to the real Platonic philosophy. So a few comments, if you have any comment, suggestion, and any idea you want to share.
Yeah, I'd like to say, this is just a question. There are so many Socrates quotes.
Yes.
Can we believe that they came from Plato? I mean, there's so many of them.
Yeah, that's all from Plato, okay? Because Socrates didn't write anything, right?
Yeah,
so,
right. But
yeah.
I mean, we're talking 100 quotes. If you were to describe any person, you couldn't come up with that much, that you said.
I had to admit, Plato is a great writer, okay? Because his dialogue is, each one is long, and the 4 or 5 I bring up, they are short one. The long one is Republic, it's 10 books. The Laws have 12 books, and that's a full of writing. Okay, so I'm not sure anybody can read all of them, but it's a difficult read.
Yeah, well, the quotes are delightful to read. I mean, they really are.
I think if you are interested to read some famous quote, and Apology probably is a good one. Okay, yeah. And Apology is a good, and all from the first account of Socrates, I think, about Plato. So yeah, thank you.
I want to thank you for the presentation tonight. Thank you. It's wonderful.
Fernando, please.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I guess in terms of real historical Socrates, there's also Xenophon, and Aristotle kind of had some aspects that he explored. But you covered the Apology last week, and just that you mentioned you covered the death of Socrates, and you mentioned this Aristophanes aspect to it, and that's the play that he's alluding to in the Apology. That you all know me from that play, and that's the play.
Yes. So is that so? Are you asking? Are you? I missed your last part, Fernando.
No, I was just putting those 2 points together.
Oh, yeah.
That's the reference, and the play that you just said. It was
Yes.
a very popular play, so that's
Yeah,
how he was primarily known.
Yes, I think probably during that time, everybody know. And I think in Plato's other dialogue, even on his last dialogue, the laws, they even mention about like some philosopher descending from the cloud, and which is inferring to the Aristophanes comedies. Yeah, so it must be very popular. Yeah. So no more comment, no more question, or any idea to share? Okay. I think from next week, okay, I already post on the meetup group. Next week, I will kind of make a little bit change, and I will post reading, okay, on the reading I do it on philosophy now, okay. So I will encourage everyone to read. And I think that would bring another way to discussing Platonic philosophy, because it's with the modern article, and you will read through that one, and we can use as a guideline and to bring up different idea of Plato's philosophy, because I think Plato has abundant writer. He wrote a lot, and he only one dialogue can probably take hours to discuss, so it's difficult. And I think I find a few articles which is I think is helpful for everyone to read, and then we can have a more dynamic discussion. So that would be the end of the day. If you have any thing to talk about, and